Way back in the spring of 1990, 10-year-old me was given a $5 allowance. In search of something to spend my money on, I came upon something fantastic at my local convenience store newsstand. It was then that I started a lifelong obsession with the gold standard of sequential art, the comic book. Now, as an old man, I have decided to open up some old boxes and dig into my comic book collection. I decided it's time for me to review and analyze the illustrations and artists that made me comics crazy. Welcome one and welcome all to Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy, and we are going to be doing the Amazing Spider-Man 333. Now we're going to be continuing that story last time from the return of Venom, a story that was drawn greatly by Eric Larson and inked by Mike Macklin. And in this issue, we're going to be seeing a good brawl between Venom, Sticks, Stone, and Spider-Man. Now, in my opinion, my humble opinion, this cover is not as great as the one that came before it, Spider-Man 332. I think this is just a classic looking cover of Venom coming straight at you with Spider-Man kind of holding his hands up there. But it's still a good cover. I'm not saying it's terrible, not saying it's bad, just saying as far as comparing the two, I like the last one a lot better. This one basically just shows you exactly what's going to be happening in the comic book. So in that regard, I do think it accomplishes its mission. You know, it gives you enough of a teaser of what you're going to be getting in the comic. So that's what you're going to get, and hopefully you're going to enjoy it. Now, I did think that this was interesting, like how they're going to be fighting down in the sewers and how they drew kind of like that, the pipelines and the electric lines and stuff like that. I did think that was drawn in a very good way. Even as a kid, I noticed how well that was drawn, you know, just how they're on the background. I'm not sure if it was traced or what. Not going to accuse anybody of anything, but I know I probably would have traced it just to save time, okay? And I'm not saying that people can't just use a ruler and draw something like that, but if you're going to save time, why not just go ahead and trace it real quick and get the work done, right? It kind of doesn't match up with the figures so much. That's why I'm kind of thinking that it might be traced. Like the perspective is a little off compared to the direction these characters are coming from, but overall it gets the message across, and I think it works just fine. I do like the little rhyming right here. If sticks and stones don't break Spidey's bones, Venom will. And you got Venom once again talking. I thought this was like a regular thing, but obviously it is not. Characters don't usually talk and have captions on or have dialogue boxes on the actual covers of books. But Venom says, "Out of the way, losers, Spider-Man is mine." So we're going to get into this. I love this first page here, this first splash page. I think it's done greatly. But, you know, you got to, once again, we're going to be looking at some of the ads as well in this book. You got Abadoc's very cool ad for a game. Once again, a game that I think I only played it maybe one time and I just rented it. But I love the way this game looks, like, you know, the nasty looking monsters, the space marine or whatever shooting it with his gun. Very classic sci-fi going on here. And it gets you wanting to play the game. And then they have what's going on in the game, like ugly eyeballs, mutant dogs, guardian ghouls, skeleton fish. You know, what 10-year-old who loves monsters wouldn't like this type of game, right? But getting on to the actual comic book, great splash page at the beginning. Okay, you got the title of the story, Stalking Feet, and you got Venom kind of spread out on the panel, kind of coming out of the panel as well. And you can see he's kind of outside of Aunt May's house looking at Spider-Man. And Spider-Man is unaware. Spider-Man is so in his feelings and thinking about, you know, Venom coming to get him. He doesn't even realize Venom is actually sitting right outside of his window. So, you know, Spider-Man's kind of hanging around Aunt May, making sure that Venom doesn't show up. and, worried that Venom might actually hurt Aunt May. And, while Aunt May is in the other room, Venom just comes up, walks right behind him, and taps him on the shoulder. And you got the reveal right here. Once again, you see how Eric Larson does these very thin panels just to kind of get a lot of things going on very quickly, getting through the dialogue or whatever. And I think it works because it keeps the page from becoming too stiff. When you go from that to that to that to that to that to that, it gets by a lot quicker than if you had maybe like cut off half the page, had one panel here, and had dialogue going back and forth. That is a mistake that I feel that I make in my own work. Well, I'll just cut, if I want the dialogue to go, I'll just cut off and just do one panel here of them talking and then another panel here of them talking. Which, if you're going to have a panel or a page where people are talking back and forth, you want to make it interesting somehow. So he broke up the dialogue by having them talk here and getting facial expressions and everything. So, and one of the things here that we get across as far as story-wise is that Venom would never hurt Aunt May because he considers her to be innocent. And he's even, trying to shake hands with Peter to tell him, we have our beef and I do plan on killing you, but I would never hurt your Aunt May. Let's meet somewhere private where we can fight and no one else will get in the way. And they make a deal right then and there of where they're going to meet. And he shakes hands with Venom, kind of like shaking hands with the devil. I like the way this figure of Venom looks, very hulking, very menacing. And, Aunt May calls in from the other room asking Peter, who are you talking to? And Peter says he's talking to the man from the gas company. And Venom makes sure he changes his suit to looks like a gas company worker. And one of the great things about the symbiote is it can change into any clothes that you want, which I always thought was cool. So now we're moving on to some more issues that Peter is having with his wife. And, he's upset that she decides that she's not going to press charges or take Jonathan Caesar to court. And, and just leave it, because she wants to just leave it alone. She's tired of being harassed by this guy. She just wants to leave it alone completely. And I can understand the perspective of some women where that comes from. They just kind of want the situation to end without having to go to court and looking at this scumbag 24/7. But Peter's kind of upset. He wants to keep her safe, but he also wants this guy punished. Now, I'll just say this. If I had his powers, I would have gotten rid of this guy if he was harassing my wife. Just saying that. I know that's not the hero-ly thing to do. That's not the right thing to do for a superhero. But me, in my opinion, if some guy was harassing my wife and sending dudes to kill me, he would come up missing. I'll just say that. Okay? And we cut back to the psychopath, Jonathan Caesar, talking with Sticks and Stone. And they're talking about, how every time they try to track Spider-Man, they can't follow him because he has the spider sense and he always seems to know when someone's following him. But what they learned is that they may be able to follow Venom. And so that's what their idea is going to be as far as trying to track down Spider-Man. Not wasting their time trying to track Spider-Man himself, but track one of his villains, and maybe that way they'll be able to keep up with where Spider-Man is. Another great way of doing exposition, make it more interesting as far as the page goes. Got a big picture of Stone's face, got some recap artwork here, and they make it seem like, okay, we lost Venom while he was in the tunnels. They don't know that he can actually just change his costume at a whim. So you get that there. So it's showing you the exposition and not just telling you. Like if he had just been sitting here talking, it might have been very boring. But if you're going to tell a little bit of backstory, this is a good way to do it. You also get to see just how deadly his partner Sticks is. When he touches the canary, he kills it just by putting his fingers on it. Okay? And this comes up later, so I'm glad they put this in here because this comes up later on in the story. Okay, it's very important that you get that point, how deadly his touch is. And he talks about just how he got his powers. He was a homeless man and taken in by this pharmaceutical company, and they told him they were going to treat him with something that gave him an immunity cancer, but it turned out his touch became like a living cancer. So, meanwhile, Spider-Man is going down to visit one of his buddies, Flash Thompson. Now, Flash Thompson was the bully back in the day, but him and Peter have become friends in adulthood, which happens a lot, by the way. Some people, you know, you might be bullied by them, or they might make fun of you in high school, but later on, you might actually become friends. And I think they became friends after Peter actually embarrassed Flash by knocking him out. But you see, he went down to the gym where Flash works with a lot of disadvantaged kids, teaching them boxing and stuff like that. And, you know, Flash is a big fan of Spider-Man and will tell, you know, how courageous Spider-Man is and how Spider-Man would never quit. And that gives Peter some more courage as far as dealing with Venom. So now we're getting down to the big fight here. So first, let's look at this panel, this page right here. Once again, you got Erik Larsen with those very thin panels. This is a very cool one. Very cool. Like how you have, you know, Spider-Man with the, you know, you kind of just see the outlines of his webs there with the costume. And he's kind of crawling upside down into the sewer tunnel. That's very cool. And something that you might normally see maybe with a villain, but the fact that they have the hero in this kind of pose, kind of moving through the darkness, I think that's a great way to kind of showcase him kind of going in to, you know, the battlefield and looking for Venom. Hey guys, if you're someone who likes comics, I got something for you. I got my own comics. Nukkull-Headz. Nukkull-Headz number 1, Nukkull-Headz number 2, and Nukkull-Headz number 3. Okay? So Chris Crazy House does not just do commentary on nostalgic comics. I also make comics. Okay? And these are 3 of my original ones right here. Nukkull-Headz number 1, 2, and 3 that you can buy at my online store. Nukkull-Headz is a story of a little girl named Angie as she goes on an adventure with this pirate group called the Nukkull-Headz as they try to save the land of Dream from the evil realm of Nightmare. Okay? So, fun action adventure story. It does center around kids, but, you know, it's for the kids out there that like comic books, but also if you're a child at heart, you will enjoy the story. It's a very fun adventure, and you can go get those now at my online store, and I will autograph these books and send them directly to you. So, back to the review. So we're coming right here to where we got the beginnings of the battle here, and you got Venom kind of sitting on these crates, kind of maxing and relaxing. He's got, you can see his weight bench in the background, and so you know it's his lair underground in the sewer tunnels here. And, you know, kind of talking mess, kind of trying to talk, kind of monologue a little bit to distract Spider-Man. And Spider-Man even starts wondering himself why Venom is talking so much. Like, we get to this point right here where, you know, Venom is kind of explaining himself and chatting to Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's wondering, like, why in the hell is he dialoguing and monologuing so much? You know, we came down here to fight. What is he doing? And what Venom was doing was waiting to get the symbiote to crawl underneath Spider-Man and grab him so he can't jump away. But luckily, Spider-Man realized it himself that he needed to get the hell out of there because the spider senses did not warn him that the symbiote was coming. Once again, you saw from this page, once again, those very thin panels to get the action across. And Erik Larsen does it again here. These very thin panels, and he kind of does it here. And things start to open up a little bit as we get into the actual fight. I like how this is done, where you get the idea that Spider-Man is kind of jumped up into the air and sticking to the wall, but you got the perspective coming down onto the floor of where Venom is and where all those tendrils from his symbiote tried to grab Spider-Man. And what Spider-Man does is you see him shoot his web at the weight bench. They made sure to set that up early on of the positioning. Venom is here, the crates are here, the weight bench is right behind him. And that setup finally does pay off right here where you see Spider-Man grab the weights and he pulls them and hits Venom in the back of the head. So that's when Venom says, "We don't want to play anymore." And here comes the infamous line of Venom. They don't really have this anymore, but I remember when this was first spoken here, and they actually used it for cartoons. They used it for a sound bite for Venom when he's his toy, his action figure, used to say the same thing. "We want to eat your brain." Yeah, that's I love this. The first time I saw this, I was like, this is insane. And this panel, Eric Larson switched from those very thin panels that were going line by line to this big open up action sequence of Venom jumping at Spider-Man. I think this is done excellently because it's threatening, it's scary, and how it tells the story is, the spider senses are going off, so Spider-Man is wondering, like, what is going on? That Venom's not triggering my spider sense because he doesn't do that. But then he realizes something is coming from behind him, and you see this chain coming right at Venom's head as he ducks down. And you got Sticks and Stone. Now, in my opinion, if I was doing this panel, I would have had their reveal be a lot bigger as well. Okay, just for he might have just been trying to save time at this point, and I'm kind of looking at this as kind of like an armchair illustrator. I would have had Sticks and Stone maybe in a bigger panel showing that they had shown up like right afterwards. I would not have had this action going on at the top. I would have just showcased them and maybe had Spider-Man kind of standing like in the foreground in front of them, just kind of showcasing that a new threat has entered the scene. But maybe he didn't have time for that. He didn't think of it, whatever. I understand. Sometimes you're trying to make those deadlines. You just do whatever you can to finish. You're not thinking about the aesthetics of a page. But I would not have gone with this very small introduction of Sticks and Stone and then have a big panel of Venom breaking out of the chains. I'd have done this in a better way. I thought this was cool because Stone, some of his weapons, he has like a sonic weapon that hits Venom. It shows you one of Venom's weaknesses, which is sound waves. That's how Spider-Man was able to defeat the symbiote before, right? But the sound waves hit Venom, and the symbiote costume is trying to run away, and Brock is kind of just sitting there naked without the symbiote around him. Advertisement for Dick Tracy, the movie. Anyone who remembers that back in the day, I actually enjoyed it. Probably one of the most comic book accurate of comic book movies, but everyone forgets about it now. Let's get back to the action here. So now we got some more action, and it's done more in a horizontal panel line rather than those thin vertical lines that Eric Larson has been using. And you see those deadly hands of Sticks trying to use those to disintegrate Spider-Man. What I like about this is he grabs his wrist, trying to keep those hands away from him, but then his fingers start to extend. So now this character has become more dangerous and more creepy. The fact that he can actually extend his fingers to do damage, and Spider-Man has to get him off of him. And even though, throwing this character out of the way, he still gets hit by some sort of gas bomb from Stone. Now, this is a cool panel. I love the way this is drawn. I used to actually try to emulate this Spider-Man panel right here because I love the pose. Now, when I drew it, it did not look as cool, and I think because I didn't understand the shadows, giving it more 3 dimensions. I just kind of drew it very flat and didn't understand that, when you draw a body in this type of position, it looks more warped when you add some more shading to it. And right here, Stone is trying to fight Venom on his own. He's shooting him with the Nova beam. I don't know why he didn't use the sound wave gun again. The sound wave gun was working. He tries to use a heat beam, or he calls it the Nova beam. It doesn't seem to work. And Venom just grabs a pipe out the wall and shoots him with the water hose. Spider-Man's fighting Sticks, trying to throw stuff at him, throwing some old feed from the Cold War, and it melts instantly in Sticks' hand. I thought this was hilarious. This whole action sequence here where Venom is jumping at Stone and Stone shoots him with a strobe burst to blind him. And Venom's face disappears. But then he comes back and says peekaboo. I thought that was a cool trick. I don't know if did they ever try that in the movies? I thought that would have been a funny trick to do in the movies, but I guess you'd have to have a villain that he's fighting for to pull that off. But Venom does get shot with some darts or whatever, and that actually seems to hurt him. He's upset about that, so he gets pissed off, and he winds up grabbing the weapons that Stone is using and destroys them, completely demolishes them. And he's going to do the same to Stone. But what happens is, while Stone is about to get killed, his partner Styx comes to the rescue, and he decides to touch Venom. And this is where those deadly hands, those cancerous hands come in. Okay, this is something that we have seen a preview of in the book when Styx grabbed that canary. Let me see if I can go back to it real quick. So you see this? This is setup. So this is something that we should always learn as far as like doing our comic. Even within this comic, the setup is there. How he instantly killed this canary by just touching it with his one finger. Now imagine him grabbing somebody with that. You know, there's a little bit more setup where he tries to touch Spider-Man, but now he touches Venom with it. And we see what happens. The symbiote melts down to absolutely nothing. And this was an interesting way of showcasing this by actually making it a panel. I'm not sure why they did that. And if it was me, I would have made this a little bit bigger just to give it more pop. But interesting, you know, I guess to show like the action of the symbiote melting. But still, I thought it was kind of weird that they broke it off into panels. I didn't think that was necessary because it looks like it's drawn as one piece and they only put the paneling over it later. And, you know, Styx is actually in ecstasy that he actually killed somebody. And even if it was, you know, just an alien symbiote. And Spider-Man is a little bit concerned, you know, the fact that Eddie Brock is sitting there crying over the symbiote suit being dead. And, you know, Spider-Man, he's caught this guy, but he's not doing anything. And so Spider-Man, he takes the symbiote suit and is thinking that now that he'll never have to deal with Venom ever again. Of course, we know that's not true. Anyone who's ever read a comic book knows the villains don't stay gone for long. But this story makes it seem as if, you know, Venom is done. Eddie Brock can go to a regular prison because he doesn't have the Venom suit anymore. And, you know, Spider-Man's going to take it. And I thought this was interesting of how this panel was done, how it's kind of done in shadow like that. I guess it's supposed to be more introspective, like the fact that you have this conclusion with Spider-Man, you know, kind of in the shadows or whatever. But that's something I probably would not have done as well or not thought to do. But it ends very quickly with the resolution of, you know, Venom being upset or Eddie Brock being upset that his symbiote suit is dead, him going to prison, Styx going to a special prison made for people with superpowers, and, you know, just saying that's the end. Now, next up, this got me hyped, okay? Next issue, the return of the Sinister Six. Now, if you guys want me to do that storyline of the Sinister Six, I do have those, and I probably will be doing those at some point, but, you know, go ahead and hit that like button and let me know if you want me to go ahead and review the return of the Sinister Six. I have the original copies. I also have a collected version of that, and I'll probably use both in that video. But, you know, tell me what you thought of my, you know, review here of Spider-Man 333. Great issue. I like the fight a lot. It drags a little bit in the middle with some of the exposition, but I guess Larson tried to keep it interesting by the way that he did the panels and whatnot, trying to make it interesting for you to learn the story here. But the fight at the end is what we came here for. This is what we wanted right here. This was the money shot of Venom jumping at Spider-Man, trying to kill him, saying, "We want to eat your brain." That's what 10-year-old boys want to see. That's what we want to see right there. That type of fight and that type of action, okay? So, you know, if you enjoyed this, once again, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see more of these types of shows on my YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And You know, make sure you share it with someone out there. If you have a friend or someone who's a nostalgic comic book fan that you know will enjoy this type of content, go ahead and send it to them. I know they'll like it. Anyway, folks, this is Chris Crazy House signing out.